Imagine going through something just awful, like something that shakes up your whole community. You'd think the justice system would bring some peace.
Right.
But what if even after they catch the person who did it, the trauma just keeps going? It turns into this like a nightmare you can't escape.
That's what we're looking at today. It's the story of Jay Urich. They're a journalist and activist. And they went through years of anti-Semitic harassment and threats after the 2018 Tree of Life synagogue shooting.
What really gets me about this case is how it shows you the limits of like regular justice. They arrested and sentenced the stalker, but it didn't take away the emotional scars for Jay He. Makes you wonder, what does real justice even look like? Especially when hate gets so personal. Yeah. This isn't just another news story. This is someone's life. It's about resilience and trying to heal after going through something nobody should have to go through. It all starts with the Tree of Life shooting in Pittsburgh. Back in 2018, horrible event that just tore through Jay's community, left everyone in shock and grief. And for Jay, it wasn't just some national tragedy, it was personal. They knew some of the people who were killed, people they'd shared meals with, laughed with, celebrated with. Jay even talks about this chilling moment, like realizing that if things had been just a little different, their own parents could have been killed that day.
Wow. Can you imagine carrying all that grief, the trauma of your whole community, and then on top of that, you become the target of these relentless attacks full of hate? It's like you're trapped in this cycle of fear, and you can't see a way out.
That's exactly what happened. A woman, who they later caught and arrested, started harassing Jay and their family. Hundreds of phone calls, voicemails with all these graphic threats and anti-Semitic messages. It wasn't just random hate. This was someone who had done their research. They knew Jay's name to their life and used that to scare them.
That's what makes stalking cases so scary. The stalker wants to control you, wants to be in your life and make you afraid all the time. That feeling of not knowing when or where the next attack will come from can really mess you up.
Jay talks about how their whole world got smaller. They lost their job, pulled away from friends. They felt trapped in their own apartment, afraid to answer the phone, even afraid to look out the window.
It's like classic trauma response. That constant fear makes your body go into fight or flight mode. It's hard to live a normal life when you're always on edge. Jay even said it felt like they were living in a prison created by the stalker.
And just when a little bit of hope came through, the call stopped for a few months, and Jay started to rebuild their life, find a new job, start a new relationship, go to therapy. But then the harassment started again. Imagine that. Feeling hope, and then bam, it's all ripped away and you're right back in that fear.
It's so sad because Jay was making progress. They had a new job, a new relationship. They were even going to therapy to deal with the trauma. To have all that stability taken away must have been crushing.
It really shows you how trauma can keep coming back. Just when you think you're healing something, triggers those feelings of fear. You feel like you're back at square one.
And we can't forget, this wasn't just a few annoying calls. This was years of harassment, nonstop, targeted and meant to hurt them emotionally. It's like a form of torture that leaves these deep wounds that might never fully heal.
And for a long time, it felt like the justice system wasn't doing anything for Jay. They called the police so many times, begging for updates. But it was just silence, or they got stuck in all this red tape. Can you imagine how frustrating and helpless that must have felt?
This is where you really see the gap between what the law can do and what actual healing looks like. Even when they finally arrested the stalker. Jay's first reaction wasn't relief. It was numbness. The trauma had done so much damage that even the idea of justice couldn't get through. Like they were just emotionally exhausted.
Almost like the damage was already done.
Yeah.
Years of living in fear had changed them. And even a guilty plea couldn't fix that.
But here's the interesting part. Jay decided to turn their pain into action. Instead of letting this experience define them, they decided to take back their power. And they did it through words. They put everything they had into a victim impact statement. This document became like a symbol of their resilience, their refusal to be silenced.
And the statement isn't just a bunch of facts. It's raw emotion. It's what it felt like to be hunted, to have your sense of safety shattered, to have your very identity attacked. Jay wanted the court to see them as a human being, someone who had survived something truly awful, not just a victim.
That's so important. In cases like this, it's easy to get lost in all the legal stuff and procedures. Jay's statement made everyone in that courtroom see the real cost of this crime, the human cost. It forced them to face the impact of hate.
And then in the middle of all this formality in the courtroom, there's this moment of unexpected kindness. Jay is transmasculine, non-binary, and they were worried about using the bathroom in a Florida courthouse. With the political climate these days, things that most people don't even think about can be scary when you're constantly dealing with a world that doesn't accept you for who you are.
It shows you the layers of vulnerability that people who are already marginalized have to deal with. The threat of violence, discrimination, even something as basic as using the bathroom can be stressful. Most people never have to think about that.
But the FBI agent who had been working with Jay on the case, she stepped in. She told Jay to use whichever bathroom they felt comfortable with. She made it clear that they were in a federal building and they had the right to be themselves. It seems like a small thing, but in that moment, it was huge.
It's the perfect example of how a little bit of empathy can make a big difference, especially in a system that can feel cold and impersonal. What that agent said gave Jay validation, a feeling of safety, a human connection in a situation where they were incredibly vulnerable.
And then there's the moment when the stalker apologizes. It's a moment full of complicated feelings. You'd think hearing the person who terrorized you say sorry would bring some closure. But it's not always that simple, is it?
We all want to be acknowledged. We want the person who hurt us to take responsibility and say they're sorry. But in this case, the apology felt empty because it wasn't directed at Jay. It was like their experience didn't matter, like it was being erased.
Jay even said that the apology didn't seem to understand the real impact of what the stalker had done. And it makes you ask, what does a real apology even mean? Is it just saying the words? Or is it about acknowledging the specific harm you caused, showing real remorse, and a commitment to changing your behavior?
That's a question that comes up a lot in cases of trauma and abuse. Can words ever truly capture the pain and suffering that someone went through? Can an apology really fix broken trust and make someone feel safe again? It's something Jay is still wrestling with, and it shows how long and complex the journey of healing can be.
There's this one line in Jay's victim impact statement that really gets to the heart of it all. They said, what cures bigotry is empathy. This is a simple statement, but so powerful.
It speaks to how understanding can change things, how we need to step outside of our own limited views and try to see the world from someone else's perspective. It's about recognizing that we're all human. We're all connected, no matter our differences.
And it makes us think about how we can be more empathetic in our own lives, in our communities, in the way we interact with the world. How can we build understanding instead of fear and division?
The stalker's sentence was a big step towards justice, but it was just one step on a much longer and more complicated path. The legal system can hold people accountable, but real healing is something personal. It goes way beyond the courtroom.
And Jay's story shows how important it is to recognize and support that journey. It's about giving people resources, creating safe places to heal, and building a culture of empathy and understanding.
Their story reminds us that we're not alone in our struggles, and that even when we're facing incredible pain, there's always the possibility of growth, resilience, and even transformation.
And it's with that spirit of resilience that Jay keeps sharing their story. They're using their voice to raise awareness about the long-lasting impact of hate crimes and to fight for a world that's more just and compassionate. Jay's story is powerful. It's like someone going from victim to survivor to advocate. Makes you think about what justice really means. It's not just about punishing someone, is it?
Right. True justice has to deal with the harm that was done, but it also has to stop it from happening again. It needs accountability, rehabilitation, and a real commitment to making a society where hate and bigotry don't exist.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into J.E. Rice's experience, what are some key things you think our listeners should really take away from this?
For me, it's the resilience Jay shows. They didn't let this horrible experience define them. Instead, they used their voice to empower themselves and others. That takes a lot of courage.
It reminds you that even when things are really dark, there's always a chance for healing and growth. You can even come out of it changed for the better. But healing isn't something that just happens to you, is it?
No, not at all. It takes work. You have to actively participate. You need support. And you have to realize that healing from trauma is a journey. It's not like you reach a destination and you're done. The legal system was part of Jay's case, but real healing goes way beyond that. It takes a change in society. We need more empathy and understanding.
So what does all this mean for us as individuals? How can we take what we've learned from Jay's story and use it in our own lives?
Well, maybe it starts with being more aware of the words we use. Are we spreading harmful stereotypes? Are we too quick to judge or dismiss what others are going through? If you want to be more empathetic, you have to challenge your own biases and assumptions. It takes effort.
And it's not just about words, it's about what you do right.
Exactly. It's about being willing to listen, to help those who are struggling, to create places where everyone feels safe and valued. Jay's story shows how powerful small acts of kindness can be. That FBI agent just telling Jay to use whichever bathroom they felt comfortable with, that made a huge difference to Jay in that moment.
Sometimes the little things can mean the most. Listening to someone, helping them out, believing their story. These are the things that build a more compassionate world.
And if you're looking for a more concrete way to help work, I encourage you to learn more about organizations that support survivors of hate crimes and trauma. There are so many groups doing amazing work. They provide resources, advocate for survivors, and help people heal from violence and discrimination.
Your support can make a real difference, whether you volunteer, donate, or just spread the word.
Jay's story reminds us that even when things are tough, the human spirit is strong, and hope, even when it feels fragile, is never truly lost.
And here's a final thought for you to think about. What small act of kindness can you offer someone in your life who might be struggling? Maybe just listen to them or really connect with them.
Sometimes those little things can have the biggest impact. They remind us that we're all connected and that human compassion is powerful.
And that wraps up our deep dive into justice, healing, and how strong the human spirit can be. Be sure to subscribe for more stories about real people and their experiences.